Can the volatile Anthony Richardson be the savior of the Indianapolis Colts? We're going to talk about that all today on this episode of Locked On Colts. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I just realized I said volatile yet again in the intro, guys. So let's change that to divisive. I think divisive is a better word for Anthony. Like volatile is like a Carson Wentz or a Will Levis, maybe. Let's change it to divisive for Anthony Richardson. If you guys notice, Jake Arthur is not here, and I just realized I got to put our names up here on for the Facebook stuff. There we go. Oh, I still have my Roy Istvon stuff on there. Let me get that out of here. All right. All right, guys. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you understand the little pause there. But yeah, I'm joined by John Hagler, of course, to talk about another quarterback in this class. If you guys are interested in some of our past conversations about quarterbacks, we talked about CJ Stroud like a month ago, I think, at this point. So yeah, if you guys hear us talking about like head coaching stuff in there, obviously the Colts did not have Shane Steichen yet. So, it's a little dated in that regard, but I think everything we said about CJ Stroud still kind of stands true with what we think. So today we're talking about Anthony Richardson, the divisive, maybe volatile quarterback here from Florida. And we're going to kick this off with the positives. So Hag, when you look at a guy like Anthony Richardson, what first pops out to you?
FON. He's a freak of nature. I got to see him live this past season at Texas A&M. He stands out. He stands out among some of the most athletic guys in the country. He passes the eye test. He passes the capable test. A lot of times we'll see guys who are very good, and you sit there and you go, oh, well, can he make all of those? No, Anthony Richardson can do anything you want him to do. It's consistently. Can he consistently do it? Can he do it on a consistent basis? Those are things that stand out right away. The upside is all the way to the bank. He's the biggest lottery ticket, I think, in this draft because his ceiling is so high and it's so much higher than the other guys. And I love Bryce and I love CJ, but you know what you're getting with them. You're getting good solid quarterback play. They're gonna do what they do. Anthony Richardson, he hasn't taken enough snaps to even know what he's capable of. This is a guy who started one season and then played some games behind Emory Jones at Florida. So his upside is scary.
Yeah, I think the biggest appeal for Anthony Richardson to me is just what he can be. Like you said, I generally know what CJ Stroud's going to be. Obviously all these guys have bust potential, but CJ Stroud, good anticipator. He's a point guard. He's going to distribute the ball well. He's going to be a good player, most likely. Bryce Young, the same way. As long as the size doesn't kill him, he's going to be a very solid passer. Yep. Anthony Richardson, in a league full of aliens, can be an alien. We're talking about, the NFL right now is dominated by these freak show alien quarterbacks. We got Pat Mahomes going to 5 straight AFC championship games, winning 2 Super Bowls, winning 2 MVPs. And I'm not saying Anthony Richardson is Pat Mahomes or he's definitely going to be Pat Mahomes. But when you look at this draft class, which guy could get to that level one day? Yep. It's the guy who is 245 pounds, runs a 4.4, can jump over 40 inches. And when you watch again, I'm not saying just watch his highlights. You have to watch the whole thing, but you can see the glimpses of what he can be. And it's not even like a Josh Allen situation where we had 3 years of what he was in college. We saw 3 years of what Josh Allen was. We've seen 1 season of Anthony Richardson. Who knows if this is just the start for him or if this is what he currently is or what he's always going to be. But this, very well, this could be this. You look at guys like Joe Burrow was under 60% completion percentage his first year in college. Yep. Jalen Hurts was way low, was super low his first year. It's so unprecedented to have a guy after his first year declare like this when it wasn't like this super productive year. But if you look at guys, traditionally guys get better after their first season. So look, I'm not saying this is definitely a guy who's 100% going to be a superstar. But when you look at this draft class and even look at the last couple of draft classes, outside of Trevor Lawrence, this is the guy who's most likely to get to superstar level.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He's there's some things with Anthony Richardson that I was more impressed with as the season went on, and then I got a chance to go down to College Station, and he does things that guys that typically bust don't do. Like
Right.
Anthony Richardson, he has pocket presence.
Yes.
He has pocket presence. Like that's one of the best things for me. Can you move around the pocket? And this isn't a guy who just takes off and runs. He can do it every play if he wanted to. But he sits in the pocket and he delivers these shots. The issue sometimes is a little bit of inconsistency with the accuracy and maybe footwork at times. But he can do those things. We've seen it. And that's why I'm not as afraid of Anthony Richardson, because I've seen him do things that he needs to do to succeed on the next level.
Right. And the biggest thing with quarterbacks like this is the number one factor determining if these guys are going to hit in the NFL is the stuff that we really can't see. It's the mind. It's that growth mindset. Are you going to come in and think about this whole opportunity like a Josh Allen did or like a Jalen Hurts did? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to come in, you're going to think like a Baker Mayfield did? Are you going to think like a Sam Darnold did? Or like these type of guys? Are you going to get rattled or blame everybody else? Or are you going to take every single second to learn? And we can't say, we have no way of telling what Anthony Richardson is. So that's why it's so dangerous for people like us to be so like optimistic or so positive about this stuff. But you can see the flashes and not just the arm strength. Like you said, the pocket presence, honestly, when you factor in pocket strength and how he can take a scramble 80 yards and score, I would call his pocket presence the best in this class, because
it's up there for sure.
Because Bryce Young, for instance, he's elusive in the pocket. He's a magician. But if you get a hand on him, he's going to go down a lot easier than Anthony Richardson. Yep. Richardson, you have to get multiple bodies on this guy.
Hey, he's a big guy. He's a big guy amongst big guys. So
yeah, he's insanely hard to tackle. He's quick. He's nimble. He's fast. And that pocket presence shows he's not he gets rattled because he's a kid, not because the pressure's in his face. He gets rattled because he just hasn't done this much. Yeah. It's all inexperience with him. And you can even see flashes here and there of, look, he's moving defenders with his eyes. He's moving the safety off so he can rip it back to the right side or whatever on single high coverage. He's moving the hook defender out so he can hit the hook over the middle. You see the flashes here and there. It's just, he's a kid. He's a kid. And I'm not saying that him being so young and being a kid is a positive, but it's not even an excuse either. It's more of it's hard to count all this against him and say this is what he's always going to be, because this is just our first time seeing him. We can say this about guys in their first year in the NFL, first year in college. We just don't know. And I'm not saying this is necessarily just a positive, but it's you have to just seeing what you saw this 1 year. It's this kid could be it. And that's so tantalizing there in the top 10 when you're looking for a franchise quarterback.
100%. But one of the things one of the defenses, like you talk about excuses, but we've seen him in chaos a little bit. We've seen him in, a system or a team rather that didn't have it all together. Right. Did he have some good players around him? Yeah, I think my ETN is going to be a hell of a player when he comes out. His interior lineman this year is going to be our first round pick, maybe. But can anybody aside from us football nerds name one receiver he was thrown to?
I'll say this real quick about his offense too. Receiver obviously is one part of it, but also an O-line coach was calling their plays last year, and it definitely shows. Their running game was fun. Yep. Their passing game was the most predictable thing you'll ever see in college football.
Very vanilla.
Very vanilla. No QB coach on staff either. It was a coaching change, so they went from again, they needed that change down in Florida, but how does that help a young quarterback who's just getting into the starting role for the first time? Again, these are not excuses. This is just what happened. They're facts. I'm not using this to say Anthony Richardson was actually amazing last year, the best quarterback in the SEC. No, not by any means. And we're going to talk about that in our next segment here, why there is reason to be concerned. But when you look at everything he did in college, it wasn't amazing, but you saw enough flashes in a kid's first year as a starter to say, look, this could be an alien in an alien-dominated league. And that's just where I am with him. I cannot make CJ Stroud have a bigger arm or be faster or stronger or more maybe the pocket awareness, but I can't make Bryce Young over 200 pounds when he actually plays. I can't make Will Levis younger and more consistent.
Yeah.
I can take this 20-year-old kid or 21-year-old kid who just first saw the field and build off of his flashes. That's where I feel you do a lot more coaching than me, Hag. So as someone who just thinks in the coaching mindset or just the defensive players mindset, I can work with this,
Yep. And that's how I look at it when I'm working with corners. I would rather take a kid who's very raw and has all the physical tools as opposed to a kid who's played it, has a ton of experience, but he doesn't have the athleticism, the raw capability, because I feel as if I can coach that. And I've done it. I've done it before. I've seen it before. I've seen former high school quarterbacks come in and be all conference guys at college. We look at guys like Joe Hayden, who played quarterback in high school. They've had there's a ton of them all over the place. And that's how I look at Anthony Richardson. And I've been giddy about Richardson since a buddy of mine was telling me about him his freshman year at Florida. I have the text to this day when he was talking about, man, we got this kid, Anthony Richardson. He's baby Cam Newton. Literally, that's the text in my phone. He's baby Cam. He was like, man, if you could see the things that he's doing at practice, and this is the year Florida was in the SEC championship game. They had good players all over the place. He was like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense of what this kid can do. He has a big arm. He's fast. He's strong. He was like, if this kid's not a top 10 pick when he leaves college, something horrible went wrong. That's how the conversation went. And, I always thought about it. I've always been a fan of him. I've always paid attention to Anthony Richardson, and we saw a lot of that. Like, if you watch the Utah game, you think number one overall pick. I literally text my guys. I text my buddies, my football circle, and I said, if he goes number one, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
If the season ended after that Utah game, he's absolutely the number one overall pick. But obviously they played a full set of games, guys. And we're going to talk about why we should be concerned about a quarterback like Anthony Richardson. It's not all praise here. We like to be some nuanced here with our discussion. But first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. The midway point of the NBA season is here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on anything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Hag. So obviously I've been the big Anthony Richardson fan and Colts Twitter, Colts land, and I think I've unwittingly kind of convinced way too many people to join me on this bandwagon, and now it's getting to the point where too many Colts fans like him to where it's like, it feels like we're ignoring the flaws a little bit. Yeah. And again, we said it all in the first segment here. He is a kid, in every sense of the word. One season started. He declared one season too early. Yeah. He did 100%. One season too early. I don't fault him for it because he was not going to develop there at Florida. We were going to get a Josh Allen situation regardless. Yeah. And, if he stays at Florida, he probably gets that completion percentage up to 58% next year, 57%. And we're having the exact same discussions, except he's a year older, so it's like, shoot, we don't even have the young kid thing going anymore, but
in a deeper quarterback class.
Yeah. Yes. So he wasn't going to be competing for QB1 next year, obviously. So when you look at everything that is scary about Anthony Richardson, it's because he's a kid. It's everything we said positive in that first one can be flipped on its head to the negative because maybe this is the best we'll ever see from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never know, and the inexperience is what is what's terrifying. That's the obvious one. It's the amount of reps, the amount of games. That's the glaring flaw in his game. But the number one thing that stands out to me are the misses. Yes. When I talk about Anthony Richardson, he has some misses on there, and it's like a high school major league prospect who can throw 101 and has very minimal control, because there's times he gets up there and he just airmails footballs and you're like, how did that happen? And that's my biggest flaw is if you can clean that up like Josh Allen did. And I don't want to compare him to Josh Allen because every big athletic kid that comes through gets compared to him, but you have to have a good situation. You have to have I feel like an offensive-minded coach who's willing to work and build the system around you. You need weapons. You need to be able to run the ball. And they have to be willing to give you a year, 2 years to put it all together and hopefully see what you can be. Like I said, when you're a little bit more mature, when you're not a kid, when you have some snaps, when you've thrown more than 300 some passes, that's what it's going to take. But that's my biggest flaws for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another thing too, because you guys know I'm a huge quarterback mechanics guy. I love QB mechanics. I've gotten into it a lot. And there's this logical fallacy with QB mechanics that because they can be improved, doesn't mean that they will be improved. Yeah. And I fall into this a lot too, because like I just said in the first segment, I can make, in my head, I can make Anthony Richardson more consistent and mechanically sound, but I can't make Bryce Young bigger, for instance.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you can't make these guys more mechanically sound. We had a guy here in Indy a couple of years ago in Carson Wentz who never became more mechanically sound. Yeah. Never, ever did. We have guys like Zach Wilson who in their whole career have never, ever come close to being mechanically sound. Some guys just don't get it.
Yep.
And sometimes we do buy into these logical fallacies where just because something can be done doesn't mean it will be done. And that's part of where, some hesitancy comes with me with Anthony Richardson is like, when you look at him, sure, the upper body stuff, a lot of it's fine. Yes, he needs to keep his front half closed a little bit more and stuff like that. But it's all really in the legs, setting to his target, not swinging open that gate. So he's driving the ball into the ground, keeping his feet calm when things are closing in or when he sees the open guy. And that'll fix a lot of his concerns. But we do live in a world where it's possible that never happens. And he's just always going to be a 55% passer. We've seen a lot of athletic quarterbacks come into the NFL and stay as inaccurate quarterbacks in the league.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's one of a guy I talk to a lot. He works with a lot of quarterbacks, and he talks about it all the time. There's the biggest thing with young quarterbacks is, can you get their lower half and upper half to merge? If you can do that, you've got a great situation going on. But the biggest issue with quarterbacks, every level, is inconsistency with the lower half, whether it's feet, whether it's hips, whether it's being or in the upper body not working together. And then, you have these quarterbacks that don't even know why they're missing at times. And that's why it's so important to have a quarterback coach, because the quarterback coach can sit there and he can look at you miss and say, hey, you're too open here, or you were too toesy here, or you didn't have a base underneath you, or you got too long here, whatever it may be. They can point those things out. And that's one of the things when we talk about Anthony Richardson, like you said, he didn't have a quarterback coach this past year. Who was fixing those issues? You know what I'm saying? And they may have been. But like you said, we saw a ton of inconsistencies. We saw a ton of inaccuracies. And those are things that can be addressed, on the next level. And because they have to. You take a guy in the top 5, like Indy's arguably going to do, the franchise, that coaching staff, that front office, they're putting the bank, on you, and they need to address it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to clarify something, Anthony Richardson does have a personal QB coach. It's just Florida didn't have a QB coach there. So a little bit different. He didn't have someone who could go through film with him individually in his own position group. He did have someone working with mechanics in the offseason. He did say recently in an interview that now that he's away from Florida and stuff, and he can only focus on the mechanic stuff, he does feel like he's getting cleaner with it. But we did, again, see in the combine throwing, there were just a couple throws here and there where he got too loose with his mechanics and he tried to just rip it, and it just didn't work. But yeah, so there's all those concerns. Again, because mechanics can get better doesn't mean they will get better. Yep. And because this kid has limitless potential doesn't mean he's going to hit it. There are a lot of concerns with that. But then the other concern is, again, he's a kid, not in terms of just feeling pressure and just being on the football field, but also in reading a defense. Don't get me wrong, playing in the SEC is a great experience for him. He was seeing some real NFL defenses this past year. I mean, he played Georgia twice in his career. So you're seeing an NFL defense right there. A lot of NFL guys on that defense. But it's so different when you get to the NFL where you're going to be making high-low reads over the middle when all these guys are running linebackers to safeties are running 4-3.
The ends are running 4-3. Nolan Smith. The ends are running 4-3.
Nolan Smith and what was his name? Sweat or Montez Sweat are going to be running 4-3 after you and stuff. The margin for error in the NFL is so small that you sometimes need these processors like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, because they won't miss that 0.1 seconds that they need. Where Anthony Richardson is so raw and so young that he's going to process things a little bit slower. And it's not really at his fault right now, but it's going to be slower processing. Yes, being a mobile quarterback does kind of give you a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds back there, but not that many, not that many. So coming from an offense that he just came from where, there were second halves of games where they were just calling 4 verts every single play, or they were calling play action double hooks. Like that's all they were calling,
Peak.
Yeah, like just a RPO peak, and that was their entire offense in the second half. Like that. This is a wide receiver screen 25 times a game. Like this is what they were doing there at Florida. Where is he going to be at when it comes to reading a defense? Mm-hmm. I don't doubt his capability of getting better in this regard.
Yeah,
but right now it's got to be low. It's got to be really low right now.
Yeah, and that's just a part of it. Like we heard, what was it, 2.5 years ago, when Mahomes comes out and says, "Oh yeah, no, I just learned how to truly read a defense. Yeah, I know what coverages were and things like that, but I didn't really know it, And that's Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy who had already won a Super Bowl at that point, or right before he won it. Or he just won it. That year, he said he felt comfortable reading defenses. It takes time. Everybody isn't a football savant. Everybody isn't Bryce Young. Everybody isn't these guys who have a PhD in football, not my offense, but in football in general. They're not going to come in. He doesn't know to come in, and he hasn't been, formally educated to come in and have a game plan ready for the offensive coordinator. That's weird. So that's not normal, and I don't think people should expect him to. But that's where I think, obviously, the staff that they hired and the people that they have around him is going to be truly beneficial for him, because I think he's going to get that opportunity. And I think it's perfect for him.
Yeah. And Hag's going to segue us here right into our last segment. So coming up, guys, we're going to talk about how a quarterback like Anthony Richardson can succeed not only in the NFL, but with the Indianapolis Colts. All right, Hag. So we're back. If you guys are on YouTube or whatever, you probably got a little bit of an ad there. But we're going to be talking about Anthony Richardson and how he could succeed in the NFL. And before we even get into too much detail here, Hag, when you're looking at coaches and just teams around the league and stuff like that, one of the best overall fits for Anthony Richardson has to be that Philadelphia offense that Jalen Hurts was running last year, right?
Yeah, and not just because Jalen Hurts in a lot of ways is very similar to Anthony Richardson. If anything, he's from a physical standpoint, a lesser version, because Jalen Hurts is a very capable thrower of the football, very athletic quarterback, very strongly built quarterback. And that's what Anthony Richardson is. Can he throw the ball? Yes. Is he physically well built? Yes. You know what I'm saying? Did he need a little bit of development when he got to the league? Did he need development in college? Because we saw him his first years in Alabama and they had training wheels on him. Did he have success? But ultimately he lost his spot, because he needed that. Then he made his way to Lincoln Riley. Things got a little bit more wide open. And I think he got more comfortable being a passer. But they use his mobility well. The Eagles already have a blueprint to that Eagle staff and now in Indy. But they have a blueprint on how to be successful with a quarterback that's similar in nature to Anthony Richardson. It's not like they're going into it like, man, we're just taking this raw, piece of clay and I think we got something. They know what to do with it. It's going to come down to execution. It's going to come down to, do we have the right receivers? It's going to come down to, are we going to give him enough time? Are you going to put the pieces around him to make him truly successful like the Eagles did? Nobody gave Jalen Hurts credit this year. It's the offense. It's the running game. It's the O-line. Well, they made it to the Super Bowl. It don't really matter. So if that's what Indy does with Anthony Richardson over the next 10 years, nobody's going to complain about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that, yes, that Philly offense was great. The offensive line is great. The weapons are great. That offense was Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Like that offense was designed for Jalen Hurts because here's what that offense did well. They ran the ball well. Yep. The quarterback is a huge part of that, by the way. So they ran the ball well, including with the quarterback.
Yep.
They were quick at getting the ball out of their hands on those yak plays underneath. And when they got you into that single high safety look, they were killing you vertically. And this kind of segues again just into something I want to ask you, because as a defender, you clearly know. If you guys don't realize, Hag played college football, by the way. You guys can just tell looking at him here. Look at this chiseled up dude right here. But no, Hag played college football. He was an NFL draft prospect years ago. Now he's obviously making it as a coach and everything now and doing some great things. But Hag back in the day was a college defender. And I'm curious, when you're playing against a mobile quarterback, not only just a guy who can get out of the pocket and create, but a guy who's a threat to run the ball.
Yeah.
How does that kind of dictate your coverage on defense? Like, how often can you sit in that too high shell and not have that extra defender in the box against a quarterback like that?
It creates doubt. More than anything, it creates doubt. When quarterbacks are one-dimensional, when their statues in the pocket, I can kind of let my D lineman work. I can let my blitzes work. when you face a mobile quarterback, a truly mobile quarterback, if I'm a C gap fitter right here, or maybe a hook curl dropper right here that's got C gap late.
Yeah.
I may rush to that C gap a little sooner because I don't want to, let him get there. And then next thing you know, he pops out and he makes a throw. It just creates doubt. It messes with time, and you add defenders into the box, and it creates, instead of dropping 6, 7 guys in coverage sometimes, well, now, I have to drop 4. Now I have a lot more one-on-one matchups. Now I have a lot more hole shots. That's what a mobile quarterback does. It creeps the defense up. It makes them doubt a little bit. And it makes them a little bit more vulnerable. That's why the league has gone athletic. It has gone mobile. There's very few statues in the league. Even the non-athletic quarterbacks are very athletic now. The older guys are the guys who don't move very well. It's not the younger guys. The younger guys coming in, you have to be mobile. The D linemen, like we saw at the combine year after year, they're getting too athletic. The linebackers are getting too athletic. You have to be able to move around and kind of make that defense, dictate what that defense can and can't do. And that's what mobility does for you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you ran with my leading question there, because I'm going to lead this into the point I was going to make is when you look at that Philadelphia Eagles offense last year, for instance, they ran 4 verts, I think like 56 times last year, just 4 verts, traditional 4 verts, so that's like 3 times a game. They are running 4 verts, and they had an explosive play rate on 20% of those calls, 20%. And you know why? Almost every single time they're running 4 verts, the defense is in single high, middle of the field closed, press coverage, and you have to win one-on-one with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Quez Watkins, who's a speedster as well. Like, these are – and I'm not saying the Colts have these weapons, but this is what Shane Steichen did with a mobile quarterback last year, is he used the threat of Jalen Hurts to get defenses into his coverages that he wanted them to be in, and then he just killed them vertically. Killed them. And, the Colts have some jump ball monsters. They have Alec Pierce, who showed a lot of flashes last year. They have Michael Pittman Jr., who, despite not really getting many targets down the field last year, we know what he can do down the field. They have guys who can win that way. So having a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, where, yes, the accuracy is going to be concerning. Yes, there are going to be a lot of concerns from day one, but he's going to be able to dictate coverage from day one because you're guaranteeing 700, 800, 900 yards rushing with this guy. Like, if you use him like they did Jalen Hurts last year, he's probably going to be 1,000-yard rusher because of that ability to use the read option and scramble and QB draw. And Jonathan Taylor, exactly.
Come on, bro. Like I know he had a down year, but like that should be the thought of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield together should terrify the NFL. Because, like we said last year when we talked about the Colts or this offseason, they're 1 or 2 pieces away on offense from being very, very good. And the type of receivers that they have, when you look at Pittman, when you look at Pierce, when you look at the big guys like Woods, like they're big targets. Mm-hmm. I can miss a little bit when I got 6'4", 6'7", 6'2", 6'3" out there. Now they just need a little bit more speed to kind of threaten those defenses. I think they're one. What are they picking out in the second round?
35th if they don't trade up. So
if they don't trade up and say they grab Anthony Richardson, you go get a Josh Downs or one of those type of guys that can run, who can work inside. It may not be a perfect fit, but I love Josh Downs, so I love to plug him. But like I said, they're 1 or 2 pieces away. And like you were saying though, if they can do those things they did in Philly with Anthony Richardson, okay, and Jonathan Taylor, and I know they had a staff of running backs, but none of those guys are Jonathan Taylor. I know he had a down year, but none of those guys are Jonathan Taylor at the end of the day. They can do whatever they want to the defense in the NFL because they have to respect it. There's going to be people in the box. Now the receivers have to win their matchup. Exactly.
And that's my overall point. This is like, look, if the Colts draft Anthony Richardson and say they start him day one, I know a lot of you guys be freaked out by the thought of that. He might complete 51% of his passes in year one, but the Colts offense is going to be so explosive on those couple that he does hits because these receivers are going to get one-on-one press coverage, middle of the field closed all day long. They're going to be able to run the ball really well because you're going to have the threat of not only a quarterback that can run, but a monster quarterback that can run. So, this basically drafting Anthony Richardson. And again, I know I lost some of you analytics guys because I'm talking about the run game a lot, but drafting a guy like Anthony Richardson is the reintroduction into explosive offensive football with the Indianapolis Colts. For all of you people who love the Andrew Luck and Bruce Arians days back in 2013, 2014, whatever it was, or I think it was 2012 too. This is it. This is the closest you can get to it. Yes, there are ways to make CJ Stroud mobile and to get more of those single high looks and attack the ball down the field. But getting a guy like Anthony Richardson, where if you're a defense, you're not scared of his throwing, but you're terrified of his running. Yeah. You're going to give him so many favorable looks on the outside that if he even improves a little bit, we're going to be talking about extremely explosive offensive football, which I know all of you guys love to hear. So, yes, Anthony Richardson is terrifying. He's a baby. He might never progress in the NFL, but what he can be is so tantalizing that I am 100% all on board using up a top 5 pick on this guy because, again, like I said at the very top of the show, it's an alien league, and you need aliens to compete with them. Anthony Richardson can be an alien. He's not that yet, but he can be. So I'm kind of all aboard with him. What do you think, Hag? What are your closing words on him?
Well, the thing is, we haven't seen, when we see freaks at the quarterback position, truly freakish players at the quarterback position, when we look at, like I said, the Josh Allens, when we look at the Cam Newton, when we look at the Lamar Jacksons, those guys had success.
True.
It's hard. Like, I'm not talking about Malik Willis, who has a rocket arm and very good athleticism, right? No. I'm talking terrifying athleticism. Put it like this: Anthony Richardson. We were at the game in Texas A&M, and I had some young guys with me, some high school guys with me, and they saw him running down the field. Okay, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's fast!" Like, dude, that dude's what? And then the next series, when they had the ball, he was taking snaps at quarterback, and because they didn't know, they looked at me and they said, "That's the quarterback." I was like, "Yeah." It blew their mind because they never thought that they would see a quarterback move like that. And I was texting, I was looking on Twitter, and I wanted to see the view from the cameras because I know what I saw on the field. I just wanted to see if it looked like that on camera. These freaks have success. You know what I mean? It's just, can you get that machine and can you drive it the right way? And I think it's going to be hard for Richardson not to do well because he is so damn athletic. But, I'm excited about his upside. I'm terrified of the potential bust factor. But if I'm a GM and I'm picking, it's going to be very hard for me to say, nah, I'll wait. Because you never know if you'll get a chance to get a quarterback like that again.
Right. I completely agree. So, guys, that's all we have for today, talking quarterbacks. We'll have Hagler back on next week to talk about his Bama boy, Bryce Young. So I know a lot of you guys are a little torn on. Oh, there you go. I know a lot of you guys are torn on Bryce Young in the comment section, from his size to his ability. We're going to talk about that next week. But yeah, today, Anthony Richardson was the whole conversation. Nothing about the Colts drafting him or any rumors or speculating source, just two football nerds talking some ball about this guy. Make sure you guys are following us on social media at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, and then obviously at John Hagler CR, one of the best in the business every single year. He's the dog. He's the dog right there. Also, subscribe to Locked On Colts podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez provide in-depth coverage on the biggest NFL draft prospects with deep dives into sleepers and hidden gems that can change your favorite NFL franchise. Find Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see you guys tomorrow.